Attack panel. And I just want to thank the last panel. Unlike Kevin Mangum, who had them completely wired, I apologize for these guys because I didn't do a very good job for setting them up. So I do want to thank them, though. The product managers, program managers have been on site since Monday evening, Tuesday, and they've had almost 2 full days, culminating yesterday with General Barry leading the panel with the same folks that were on it for over 2 hours. They gave great laydowns on their programs, and then they go to Q&A and they get maybe 30 minutes of a couple of questions. But I want to thank them for their commitment. So I don't know if this is punishment for them or not, having to, recover the same ground, but we're glad they're here. So the panel today, Colonel Jay Marr is the PM for Apache. We've got Brian Woody, who's the Army Capabilities Manager for Recon Attack down at Fort Novacell. Colonel Danielle Medaglia has the product manager for uncrewed aircraft systems right now, a very big portfolio. And then Lieutenant Colonel Rigby is the program manager for future attack reconnaissance aircraft. His boss is taking care of our senior leader right now. But thanks for stepping in. And then, of course, Colonel Burr Miller, who's the PM for Aviation Mission Systems and Architecture. And again, big portfolios. I mean, future vertical lift capabilities are embedded in some of the other PMs. You've got the enduring fleet PMs here, so great responsibility for all of them. So the way that we're going to do this is hopefully there are some question and answers. I've got some teed up for them. Again, they're going to cover some of the same ground, but in sequence, going to ask them just to talk a little bit about how their programs are going, what their priorities are, perhaps maybe some of what their challenges are going forward. And again, I hope we get some good Q&A going for these leaders. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Mayer to talk Apache.
All right. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, just thanks for coming and thanks for being here today. In Apache's, things are going pretty well. We've been working really hard together. I would say that one of the most important things that we do is I am very, very tied and nested with the ACM-R counterpart, Colonel Woody. So it's been very good. I think it's something we started several years ago. We do a one-to-end list from a priority perspective every single year at the beginning of the calendar year. So we set the priorities. We review last year, what we did and did not accomplish, and then level set for the current year, and then we look at kind of bucketing kind of the near, mid, and far capabilities, and we do run that through the branch chief as well. So we make sure all of our priorities are in alignment with each other, they're in alignment with the branch priorities, they're also aligned with G8 as well. And I'll kick it over to my counterpart here maybe to go through some of those priorities where we are today.
Okay, as you guys know, that the Apache is probably going to be around at least until 2050. So if we backwards plan off of that, we can kind of look at our long, mid, and short-term requirements and priorities. But to kind of reinforcing fires what Jay's saying, as far as the one-to-end is concerned, we do that every single year, and we get that reviewed both through the six-pack and also through the Apache community to make sure that we're targeting the right things. And number 1 through 3 right now kind of deals with some obsolescence and some problems that we've been having with the platform recently. Most notably is the generator. So kind of going back to the future, the Dash 13 is now going to become the Dash 7. And we also have a way forward to replace the air-cooled generators with an oil-cooled generator led by Boeing, who just recently had a request for proposals so we can get that oil-cooled generator on the platform within the next couple of years. And then the second one that we're working on is probably within the top 3 of what the brigade commanders, the tactical brigade commanders, tell me every time I speak with them, and that has to do with the M230 accuracy. So if you flew a Delta model, you might have been familiar with the fact that the M230 was almost like a sniper rifle. Well, that has not necessarily translated over to the Echo model. There's a whole host of things that are kind of influencing that, and ACM-R and my team go out and visit 2 units doing gunneries to try to learn what the problems are. Maybe it's a training deficiency, maybe it's a .mil PF problem. So we're continuing to nug down on that and try to figure out what those things are. And then the third in the priority list right now is the HMD, the helmet-mounted display, using a biocular system so we can get away from the monocle, and we're not just looking through almost like a soda straw. Now we're going to have a full face cover that's going to give us all the data necessary to not only pilotage and navigate, but also to target as well too. And you might have noticed some of the vendors out here that are kind of perpetuating that and showing us what is available, both through Elbit, Boeing's got some, and then Thales as well too. So those are our top three. Last year, we actually had a win. Our number one last year was Digital Call for Fire. That was trying to get that back out into the environment. Since we're practicing for full-scale operations, artillery, and to be able to call for fire is kind of important. So being able to relearn Digital Call for Fire was a no-cost solution that we satisfied last September during a live fire event out at JMRC in Germany. Any questions? And I'll turn it over. Danielle?
Hey, thank you. So I am Danielle Medaya. I am the project manager for uncrewed aerial systems. And quite frankly, UAS is a very exciting place to be. Currently, a lot of action going on recently in the UCOM area where you've seen UAS more than ever helping and growing on a battlefield. So yesterday I briefly touched on our diverse and very dynamic portfolio, because we have from the Group 1, the small quadcopters, all the way up to the Group 4, large gray eagles. So very briefly, Group 1, our small 1.5-pound quadcopters, we began fielding that in September of 2022 out to our brigade combat teams, as they are company and platoon level assets. But as soon as we began fielding, we immediately started developing Tranche 2. Really looking at what our users need, what those new capabilities are. So we are on track for a new soldier touch point this fall with SRR Tranche 2. Again, just incrementally getting after that short range reconnaissance. At the end, I think by 2030, we'll have about 14,000 short range reconnaissance fielded, and that doesn't even include medium range reconnaissance or long range reconnaissance. Stepping up to Group 3, most of you are very familiar with the Shadow. We began fielding Shadow Block 3 pretty recently, this past fall. But what's really exciting is our future tactical UAS. So we recently started that competition. We began in February with 5 industry partners, and we're doing incremental down selects, and that will begin fielding in 2025. And what's exciting about FTUAS is we're no longer hitched to a runway. Instead, it's a vertical takeoff and landing system, much smaller footprint from a sustainable perspective, as well as it could be moved in a Chinook versus all the items that come with the Shadow today. I know most of you also have heard launched effects. You might have been familiar with the word air launched effects, but now because it's not just tied to an air platform, but also we'll be launching it from the ground, that's why we just changed it to launched effects. Currently, we're in the prototyping phase, and we're really just getting after that small form factor that will be fielded in 2025. And what's really exciting there is that we only touched a small portion of that requirements document. We're going to get after the other portion of that requirements document, which is other form factors of air vehicles, as well as additional payloads. Also in that space, we have, believe it or not, in UAS, we have software pathways. We have 2 software pathways, Scalable Control Interface and RAC 2. And this is super exciting because as an aviator, it's awesome when I see other aviators get fired up about software, because I was not one of those people when I came in that. I'm like, okay, software, that could stay over here, but wow, it's going to be a game changer. It is hardware agnostic, and so the key issue there is how do we find commonality from ground robots all the way up to Group 4 Gray Eagles, and easily be able to upgrade the software, get after the newest capabilities in software. We're cutting edge technologies, buying and procuring and integrating new capability modules onto the software. And then lastly, I'll touch on Gray Eagle. So Gray Eagle is an enduring capability, but we really need targeted modernization. So working on additional payloads for Gray Eagle, but more importantly, what we've heard over and over again from our users is we need it to be more expeditionary from a ground perspective. So get us out of the huge containers, And hey, can we just throw up our radar and a laptop and let's move? Let's be more expeditionary. So that's what you see going on in a very high overview way in the UAS portfolio. Over to you, Riggs.
Great, thanks.
All right, I'll try this one. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Lieutenant Colonel Mike Rigney, Product Manager for FARA, representing Colonel Kevin Cheney. First and foremost, I'll just say, being in the FARA team, honored to be here and honored to work across such a fantastic group of people, whether it be ACM or CFT, tremendous work, and it's exciting to be a part of such a new capability. From the top, I'll just say, from the FARA perspective, with the divestiture of OH-58 and transition to man-to-man teaming, although very effective, not necessarily ideal, so it gives us an opportunity, right? An opportunity to really address going after exponential capability and a new FARA platform. So we're focused on speed, range, time on station, advanced payloads, establishment of the FEL ecosystem, that being launched effects and long-range precision munitions. And as we look forward, the bottom line of everything that we do in the FARA Product Office or FARA Program Office is based on providing exponential capability to that Ground Forces Commander. So to that end, there's really 3 lines of effort that we're focused on each and every day across the Product Office. First one is competitive prototype, right? So competitive prototype with our OEMs, 95% complete. That's pending the delivery of the improved turbine engine. We expect that delivery to happen in the first quarter of 24, right? We'll integrate those engines, we'll instrument those engines, we'll get through ground test, and then we'll eventually get to our competitive prototype flight demonstrations by the summer of 24. That's line of effort number 1. All of the learning, all the modeling and validation that we get from those competitive prototype efforts has really advanced us and pulled a lot of learning and a lot of risk mitigation to the left. So that transitions me to the second line of effort, which is increment 1 preliminary design. On the increment 1 preliminary design side of the house, the bottom line for us is transition everything we've seen in the competitive prototypes, and then work hand in hand with our user community, with the engineering side of the house, to make sure that we're designing and developing the most capable, the most safe platform that we absolutely can, that could achieve all the requirements that the user community has put upon us, both at an affordable place and a developmental aspect as well. I'll say that the next milestone for us is we're going to continue to work some trade space efforts, get to a point where I have pencils down in terms of some of the requirements, and look to our vendors and say, prepare for a SRR, and that starts this summer, right? En route to a very focused PDR in 2025. So that's kind of where we stand on the increment 1 development side of the house. Key to that, and we've heard some senior leaders talk through this throughout the week, is modularity and MOSA. So what's unique to the FARA Product Office is that we're approaching something called OSVD, or Open System Verification Demonstrations. The first one starts now, right? And that's an opportunity for third parties to come in without the help of the OEM and make a modification, either software or hardware, zero help from the OEM, and see how MOSA that platform really is. And they'll be graded on that event, right? So we start that now, and then we do another one next year. And that's going to be key and essential moving forward to see, do we have the opportunities to upgrade and update these platforms at the speed of relevance? And so it's a little bit different from what we've seen in the past. The third line of effort is really our EMD RFP. The approach on the EMD RFP is, right now our critical path is in parallel the analysis of alternatives. That analysis of alternatives is in work. We expect that to be completed November, December timeframe. Right? Once that is completed, about 55 days after the completion of the AUA process, we can move out with an EMD RFP authorized by senior leaders in the Army. So that should set us up for a milestone B down select in the first quarter of 26 and transition to a major capability acquisition pathway during that time. So with that.
So good afternoon, Burr Miller, PM AMSA. Lots of exciting stuff going on in our portfolio. On any given day, we have about 55 enabling programs supporting our platform customers going on. So I'll hit a couple that I think are relevant. First is our EGI program. So continuing to build, last year flew the first M-code EGI in DoD on Gray Eagle. and we're getting ready to start certification of that EGI on our manned fleets at the end of this year. So very, very exciting to finish the development, move to that new technology, and get ready to put that out into our warfighters' hands. That's coupled with our anti-jam antenna to provide the assured PNT solution to our various fleets and ensure that we can get good timing and those types of things in the cockpit when required. Our AGPU, some of you may have seen, we brought our new AGPU out. It's on the floor here. So the current AGPU in the fleet, very, very old, 40 years old. The new AGPU is going through its final testing right now. We'll make a full rate production decision early next year and expect to get into full rate production on that. We're really excited to see that in the fleet, and we've gotten lots of really great feedback from our customer base on that. Two new radio systems coming out. We have the ARC 231 Alpha, which is going to replace our ARC 231, our air-to-air radio. So we are actually starting flight tests next week on that, and look forward to completing our flight tests this year and going into full rate production to start changing out the radios in the cockpit to meet our crypto mod requirements for our air-to-air. As well, our AGNR radio system in partnership with our teammates up at C3T. So we received 2 AGNR candidates down, and then we make an integration decision per platform of which one of those radios will go into the fleet. So we have officially selected our 60 mic, and we are working on the CH-47 right now and the H-64. So that's very, very exciting going on. And then our AMCE, so our work with MOSA and architecture. So 2 sides to that, our mission side, which is substantiated with AMCS. That is still pre-CDR right now. We're trending towards a CDR decision late this year. And then on the other side is our CDC under it, our communications, data links, and controls, which is in partnership again with our teammates up at C3T in the CMFF arena. So lots of great things going on there. Lots of other programs, Blue Force Tracker, our Impact, which is converging our ACE and AMPS into a single software that we can ride on the network. Lots of great things going on. So look forward to any questions, and appreciate the opportunity to engage with everyone.
I'd like to open it up for any questions that you all may have of the panel right now. No, come on. There. Very good. Just speak loudly, please.
Question for you, Mike Willie, Carmen, Space Defense, as it relates to launch defense. Some of the payloads that you're talking about, the missile system, does that reside in PEO missiles in space, or does it reside in your shop? Where do those fly to us?
Yeah, sure does. Still off? Oh, here I am. No, that's a great question. And it's one we're having within the Army right now. So his question was, in case people didn't hear it, Launch of X almost blankets a variety of different PEO spaces, right? So how are we all working together to actually put out a product that is fieldable, deliverable, and it works, right? So for example, my teammate is out of PEI IEWNS for most of my payloads. So they have the expertise in PD, SAI, whatever type of payload you want to talk about, diller, decoy, what have you. I am not going to hire more people to do payload work. They are the experts. They're my teammate. Similarly, we're going to get after a lethal payload here as well in the very near future. PEO Missiles in Space is my teammate in the TAGM office, excuse me. Again, working with our brothers and sisters across ASALT to get the experts to come in and listen so we can integrate their payloads. Does that answer your question, sir?
Or FARA, 1 engine or 2?
Got it? All right. So the question, if you didn't hear up front, was FARA, 1 engine or 2? So what I'd offer to you, sir, is FARA will be powered by the improved turbine engine, right? There's flexibility within our requirements to make sure that that aircraft is a safe, capable platform, right? So the flexibility goes to the OEMs on how they're going to meet the requirements for safety, and then we'll see what they return back in the proposal. So I wouldn't say that there's a hard decision on single engine versus dual engine. There's powered by ITEP, we know that to be true today, and then flexibility on how the vendors are going to approach safety of the platform.
When and if does Apache get ITEP?
So good question on the ITEP piece. So right now we are in phase 2 of our integration program for ITEP. So it's moving along. We are scheduled to get engines, I believe, early or late 2024. We're going to have first flight and around third quarter 25, and we're already nested with the Blackhawk, the UH-60. So for a combined IoT and E, so we're on track and on pace with the integration effort right now.
I will give the audience a break here and just ask Colonel Woody and Colonel Mayer to comment. Again, Apache's going to be in the inventory for a long time. If you gave this PM a bunch of money, he has a very good plan on how he would spend that money in terms of the modernization of it to enable it to continue to be lethal in large-scale combat operations. So I just asked Colonel Woody to talk about future requirements and what you all are doing in terms of assessing and that piece for Apache.
Okay, so like I mentioned before, the Apache is going to be around for a long time, so 2050 at least. So we are fielding the Echo model right now. It's still going in through production, not only on the USG fleet, but as far as FMS sales are concerned as well too. 6.5 will eventually be the common configuration and software for the entire fleet here pretty soon, fully funded, and then we'll all be singing from the same sheet of music. But as far as future modernization is concerned, we have to make sure that the Apache stays relevant on the battlefield and stays competitive as the premier and sole attack platform within inside the Army. So that means on the armament side of the house, we're pursuing getting rid of our dumb rockets in some form of capacity to have some type of semi-autonomous or autonomous rocket that reaches out to 8Ks and possibly beyond. LRPM, the long-range precision missile, will be fielded on the Apache as well too. We're also pursuing the 30 Mike proximity fuse, allows us to go after the counter UAS as well as infantry kind of out in the open. And then we've got the backbone of the fleet being the Hellfire, and then eventually the JAGM is going to replace that too. We're also going to pursue the long-range JAGM, the JAGM-R, which goes out to 16K, allowing us to reach out a little bit further than the 8K that the Hellfire currently gives us right now. So between the ITEP, that gives us more power, the new drive shaft, a new tail rotor to give us full tail rotor authority in hot and heavy altitudes. That's kind of what we're pursuing in the modernization side of the house. Eventually, sensor fusion will eventually come down the road as well too. But it's a holistic view and a holistic approach to make sure that the Apache stays relevant well into the future.
And just to add to that just a little bit, Colonel Woody mentioned 6.5 software. So that is a major software OFP build for the Echo model. If many of you are familiar with the Echo model, know there are multiple variants of an Echo model out there. We went from 6 or 7 down to about 4, and now we're hoping to go to a single configuration, so a 6.5 software configuration. And that's the backbone for modernization too, right? It's the ITEP software hooks. The baseline for the ITEP program is in 6.5, which is very important. A lot of mandates in there, a lot of critical pilot-to-vehicle interface updates in there. But also, we just had a meeting with some international partners, right? And they're wanting to go to 6.5 as well. And most of our international partners are on board with that. So what does that do for us? It gives us a common fleet across, from a geopolitical standpoint. You have a common fleet of Echo model Apaches. And so, on top of that, the 6.5 kind of opens up our architecture a little bit. So we have an open systems interface through an A-Ring 661 application. It allows us to go back behind the glass in a limited capacity and not have to go back to the OEM. And talking to those international partners, they have a radio integration issue that they want, and they want to address it in 6.5. So that's one of those applications that we would actually bypass OFP to actually integrate, right? And we're trying to do that with the Agner radio, with our AMSA partners on there, and then future applications with aircraft survivability equipment as well. So a big deal inside of 6.5 is the first crack, first bite at the apple of an open systems approach. So.
Is there any consideration for ASC or DVE upgrades for the Apache?
Yes, there are. So on a limited capacity on the ASE front, so if you're familiar with Kirkham, right? So Kirkham is limited to a version 4 Apache. That's it. And it's federated on that. And so in the 6.5 software, it addresses all Echo model, all Echo model Apaches. So they'll all be on a Kirkham baseline from an ASE perspective. What's next is not really in my purview. But what was the second portion? DVE, yes. So there are some DVE upgrades in there. We're incorporating Navy terrain avoidance software inside of 6.5. So it's reuse. That's another portion of open systems interface, is the ability to reuse other people's software in the platform. And sensors as well. And there's some updated symbology in the 6.5 software too.
First of all, thank you so much for the panel. You guys did a fantastic job presenting. It seems like a lot of the information we've been presented today focuses on fires and maneuvers specifically. But I wonder, in the reconnaissance aspect, how it supports major land battle and supported joint force. How do you see investments in your portfolios moving that area toward the line of troops and basically developing combat operations beyond just simply destroying targets in place or effective?
So, good question, thank you. So we see, especially with the Apache, as being a holistic or a partner with inside that reconnaissance symbiotic relationship as far as FARA is concerned. So if FARA is going across the FLOT, detect, identify, locate, and report, limited ability to prosecute targets organically, but of course can reach back with long-range precision fires. But we also need to make sure that the Apache is integrated into that loop, both in communications and also situational awareness, so that the FARA can then call the Death Star forward and start applying their particular trade on targets down the road. But I imagine UAS has equally as much as that.
To your point, so let's get to launched effects, right? So launched effects will be on FLRAA and FARA, and potentially a lot of our enduring rotary wing platforms as well. So when you're talking about not just only ISR, but we're also getting after lethal payloads, it's not going to be one end item depending on that mission. It is truly extending the operational reach, keeping out of that enemy's WES, that weapons engagement zone. At some point, I think our enemy can see us earlier than ever. So how do we add confusion to the battle space? That's another thing that Launch Effects is looking at as well.
Yeah, so what I'd offer is that it's a hard problem to solve, right? But meeting continually with these working groups, aligning to the architectures that we know to be true today, constantly cross-talking with the user community and understanding what is being asked to develop inside the requirements documents and how are we aligning to those, to execute to those requirements documents. And again, going out to test events, right? Edge events, PC events, future events that are driven by FEL CFT to do a check on learning and see what's within the realm of the possible to make sure that all those network connections are there and we're building towards what we think the user community wants to see, and then we prove it out as we move forward. But anything to add, ma'am?
No, I just offer we're completely linked with our teammates in the requirements as well as in the FARA product office. So gone are the days where we can be stovepiped and just go out on our own. We can't do that anymore. We're 100% teamed and aligned with the user as well as the material developers.
So I'd ask Danielle, is there any discussion at all on aircraft survivability equipment for UAS? And I'm really kind of targeting MQ-1, which some would argue that on the survivability piece for it. I think from a personal perspective, it's very, very important to our portfolio and to our capabilities, but I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on MQ-1 and modernization of that.
Yeah, I sure do. Thanks for that. That question's been asked at least many times this last couple of years specifically, and we've done running a lot of models regarding that. And what I offer is our Gray Eagles may be limited to payloads. As we continuously that modularity in Gray Eagle, again that targeting modernization. That includes the payloads to increase survivability in our Gray Eagle, in our enduring fleet. Again, it's a little different than as a lot of our stuff in our portfolio is new. So when you're adding MOSA into an enduring system, it's very deliberate and it has to be thought through, and that's what we're doing currently.
And while we're still on uncrewed systems, can you talk any about how the FTUAS is going right now in terms of that?
I offer that very high level. We went on contract with our 5 industry partners in February, and the down select and the competition is absolutely on schedule, and we still are planning on fielding in 2025.
A comment previously about joint partnerships or our coalition partners that are also buying aircraft and want to have parity with you makes me think of another element that we're talking a lot about expeditionary operations in the future combat environment with MDO, et cetera. How are your portfolios changing, or are they changing to address joint special operations with coalition or anybody else integration? And do you see opportunities for investment there throughout your portfolios?
Joint? So this is an area I work in a lot in AMSA. So most of our enabling capabilities are, need to be releasable to our foreign partners. And so we spend a lot of time trying to go through. It's a very complicated process to take a piece of equipment and release it to our foreign customers. But the other piece in working with our foreign customers is, one of the things that PEO has recently stood up is a working group to understand how we can collaborate with our foreign customers as new concepts are coming out and fund it, because there's lots of great things we can do out there. And so one of the things that PEO International is working, and PM AMSA is the test case for that, is new capability that maybe we're not planning to put out for a couple of years. How do we move it a little faster? We can move it a little faster with our international partners by them bringing some dollars to the table to push that capability. And I can give you a couple of really good examples. In all of our fleet, our control head for our radios is old, it's obsolete. We are moving to a new control head, which we plan to start putting out about FY25. It creates a bit of a delta for our international partners because we're really kind of out of that control head in our supply system. So we can use some partnership with them to move that control head faster than the program schedule that we have in the office, get that capability out to our foreign customers, as well as develop the MWOs that will go on the U.S. fleet. So it's a really exciting area for us specifically with our international partners to bring out capability faster and bring value to both sides of the party.
I'll add one more thing to that from a large perspective on Apache. Like we've started talking with international partners too about, commonality equals common parts, sustainment, maintenance, things like that. You're going to stage somewhere. You want to be able to actually be interchangeable. You want to be, interoperable with your international partner. You have the same configuration of an aircraft, maybe some minor nuances, but largely the same. They may execute maintenance different depending on how they do contract maintenance or the PBL type activities. But what we want to have is common parts and the ability to actually be interchangeable.
So what I'd offer on the platform side of the house for future vertical lift, well, FARA, we're trying to be as proactive as we possibly can. So we're working hand in hand with DASA DEC and FEL CFT. We've engaged in discussions and project agreements with interested countries, just collaborative in nature at this point, and also taking lessons learned from how this has gone in the past. So well left of milestone B, right? So we're not surprised by anything. Future decisions will drive how and when we do that, but we're actively in those conversations now.
Sir.
The only thing I've heard about sustainment is the AGCO, which is good news. Is there any other good news on the sustainment front? Because multi-domain operations obviously are going to reduce the footprint forward. You need that assured sustainment periods. Is there anything that any of you can help us out on that front?
I'm going to take it a different way, sir. So recently, we went to an AROC about 2 weeks ago for the Joint Tactical Resupply System, and that's getting after the contested logistics. So I'm not talking about sustainment specifically with my portfolio, but what we're enabling for others, right? And it's currently looking at a 125-pound payload. Really get after the 13K out and back. That part when it's really hard to get supplies where they need to go. So we've teamed up with the Marine Corps. So the Marine Corps is a little ahead of us in this area. So PMA 263 up in Pax River have been phenomenal. The Army, we're going to procure off of their contract so the Army can learn to see what we want and inform our .mil-PF and all those items to include who could even fly it, right? Are they going to be MOS specific, or are we going to go more towards the Marine Corps and just have an additional, they call it an FMOS or a free OMOS in the Marine Corps. But anyway, maybe not exactly answering your specific sustainment question, but I wanted to offer from a UAS perspective, we're also thinking about how we move supplies around the battlefield.
So, sir, for FARA, I think MOSA coupled with model-based systems engineering, right, will reap rewards as we move forward and how we approach sustainment writ large. We have maintenance-free operating periods, limited operating periods that we're looking at now. We have studies that are ongoing to help inform as we move forward, and we have transition from an abbreviated capabilities document to our CDD in 25, right? So we're doing the hard work now to understand what that looks like, what's feasible, what's executable from the OEM's perspective, and how we bake that into our requirements documents when they get validated from the Army.
For Colonel Miller, Burr, could you talk about, since you're the proud owner of the CAB Architecture Integration Lab, anything that you got going there?
Yeah, so the Cabello, a facility we've had running in the PEO for a few years now. Recently, the boss asked AMSA to take over ownership of that because it dovetails very, very nicely into the mission we do. And in fact, PM AMSA will be moving to the cargo building here shortly so that we can be co-located with the capability down there. But what is the Cabello? It's the opportunity for vendors to come in and try out things on representative airframes. So we have flight simulators down there. Most of our flight simulators have some semblance of the actual boxes, the actual hardware, the wiring that is on a platform. So you can come down, hey, we've got a DVE solution that we want to show you. We can run it on something representative, such as an AMCS surrogate down in the Cabello, or we've got a piece of software that we think is really going to help Apache out to do something. So we can actually bring it down, let you put it on the kit down there. and give you a good read of what it does, how does it interact with actual equipment on the site. It's also a really good opportunity for us to kind of target vendors, look at specific capabilities, and then what my team does is then we go back to our platform customers and say, hey, look, we had a vendor come down, they showed us this very unique capability with software or some type of hardware solution. We really think this is good, and we'll pass that over to them so that they can get some connection into the platform to take a look at that or to explore that anymore. So we're really excited as we're building that out, and as we work with our FVL customers to start bringing FVL ecosystems into the Cabello, so we can truly have a place it's interconnected to each other, so we can do things on the Apache and the Blackhawk together at the same time. But what I'm most proud of is just providing that, as General Todd said when he first stood up the concept, a sandbox for vendors to come and show us what you can do. And so we're real excited to be able to host that down there. And I offer, if you have some great capability, you want to show us what it can do, contact my team, and we'll be happy to host you down the Cabello.
All right, any further questions for the great panel you've got assembled up here? Okay, in the interest of training to a standard and not time, I want to take the opportunity to thank these great leaders for, as General Mangum said, what you have done, what you're doing, and what you're going to do. So thanks so much. A round of applause for these great leaders, please.